MEZE is improving, and other hi-fi manufacturers should be scared.
Well, I told you so. MEZE just released not only the best headphone that they have ever made, but possibly the best headphone ever made. Today we're going to be talking a lot about this. I think it's definitely worth a watch. We're also going to be talking to another YouTube audio reviewer, DMS. You can find links to his channel down below, as well as some affiliate links. If you do choose to use those, I would appreciate it, but they are not required. I'm happy with you guys just watching. Now, before we get started, of course, like always, all thoughts and opinions here, gonna be my own, man. Also, very last thing, MEZE did send this out early ahead of the actual launch date. Thanks, MEZE, I appreciate it. So, like, I don't know, like best MEZE ever, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's like the best MEZE and also the least MEZE, but also the most MEZE.
Yeah, it's definitely the most like departed MEZE from the Empyrean / Elite line in terms of sound, but also like the best effort so far.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Well, Antonio is a great industrial designer. Like, I think the things he makes are beautiful.
Now, not only is this MEZE's best sounding Empyrean, but it's also, in my opinion, the best looking. They've gone away with some of the color schemes and just kind of gone with this mostly matte black and carbon look. I think it looks great. Now, I'm sure over the years they've done some slight minor tweaks to maybe some geometry changes or something, but largely this is exactly the same design as the Empyrean and the Elite. Now, the highlights of this build are a combination of build precision. This feels incredibly well built. This doesn't feel tough, but it does feel luxurious and really well put together. I wouldn't want to drop it, but I do think that it would last a long time as long as you took care of it. Now, this is definitely not a small headphone by any means, and it's not a super light headphone either, but they absolutely nailed the weight distribution on here. The weight is distributed almost perfectly all the way across the entire top of your head and all the way on the sides of your face. So even though it's big, even though it's a little heavier, it doesn't feel like it. It's an extraordinarily comfortable headphone. That has been a staple for the Elite and Empyrean build, is the comfort. Now, funnily enough, I think this is the most comfortable one that they're using because of the pad choice, because they're using a micro suede on the outside of the stock pads that comes with this, not the secondary set. This feels not only extremely comfortable, but doesn't have some of the negative like heat properties like leather, for example. So even though you have some leather on the outside and on the inside, the part that's interacting with your face, not leather. Great choice. I'm also happy that these happen to sound the best as well, not just feel the best. Now, they do have a secondary pad that is all micro suede. I'm not a huge fan of these pads, but they are slightly smaller and slightly angled, unlike the completely flat pads of the stock ones. Now, because this is a very strange type of driver, it actually has different areas that are responsible for different parts of the sound. Some parts are made for the bass, some parts are made for the treble. So where this actually fits in your ear will actually make a difference in how you experience this headphone. If it's actually pushed up towards like the bottom of your earlobe, for example, it'll be a little bit brighter, thinner, less bassy sound than if it's pushed towards the top of your ear, which will be more bassy and less trebly. I think that kind of landing somewhere in the middle is definitely the sweet spot. What really makes this headphone so good is the tuning. This, in my opinion, is the perfect marriage between an enjoyability focused tuning matched with technical performance. It's a very good combination. This is a slightly warmer, slightly V-shaped sound signature. It's not completely flat all the way across the board. It also doesn't lean too far into any one direction. And I actually think that the V-shape here is done very tastefully. So when it comes to sorry, wrong graph. When it comes to bass quality over bass quantity, here's how it basically breaks down. Over here, you have headphones like Beats, which have a lot of quantity, but not very much quality. Then you have headphones like the HD800, which have high quality, but not a lot of quantity. But the Empyrean exists somewhere about here. It's not the absolute most in quantity, it's not the absolute most in quality, but it's really good at both. Now, the bass here is a 10 out of 10. This competes with the rest of the top performers, in my opinion, for bass. Other headphones like the AB1266 or the new Diana MR with the bass vegan pads, those do hit a little bit lower in the real sub-bass regions. I would say when it comes to headphone versus headphone against those, below 40 hertz would go to either the 1266 or the MR. Above 40 hertz, I think I actually prefer the Empyrean too. It's a little bit thumpier and harder hitting in that range, being a little bit cleaner on the MR and the 1266. Just a matter of preference here, but both are exceptional. Now, when it comes to mid-range, I actually want to call back to the conversation I had with Doug. He said something that I liked a lot, which was talking about mid-range linearity.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I've measured it. I'm looking at the graph of it right now on my phone, but you can tell like that there is a recess in the upper mid-range. I feel like it's linear enough that it doesn't sound like there's a drastic, dip or peak anywhere like that. I mean, there's definitely like some little peaks in the treble, but they're not like massive. But I think that what it does well throughout the mid-range where it does recess down and back up is linearity. It's not dramatic or very quick when it makes these changes.
And it can definitely grip you. Headphones that have a big dip through the mid-range, like the HD820,
Yep.
like they do not grip you in any way. And it sounds like centered, but that's it. There's nothing like raw and textured and like really interesting about it, I guess.
The HD820 grips me with sadness.
Yeah, it grips you with depression. Even with a slight recession in the upper mids, you don't feel like this headphone sounds thin or hollow at all. It sounds quite fulfilled, actually. I'd say that one of this headphone's better traits about the mid-range, actually, is that it really just follows whatever the music is designed to do. If the music is super vocal focused, it's gonna really highlight and give you the full quality of that vocalist in all of its detail and glory. But if the song is also playing a lot of background instruments and those are supposed to be more and more involved, then this actually displays those and lets those kind of dance in the background really well. Now, I don't think a little bit more mid-range forwardness would be a bad thing. If I could just design the perfect headphone with no flaws, I would have a little bit more mid-range here. Just a tiny bit more focus, I think would be just absolutely perfect. But as of right now, it's a solid 8 to 9 out of 10. If you're really focused on mid-range and not so much bass, treble, imaging or sound staging, I would focus on something like an Odyssey LSD5 that's going to be really good for acoustic drum recordings that need a lot of mid-range impact and power. This is one of those things where on paper, this doesn't look like the absolute best performance out there, but I think in practice while you're listening, you're really not going to notice it that much. Now, versus Empyrean 1, this showcases some major improvements. They fixed the biggest complaints and they even added some benefits to this over even things like the Elite. In my opinion, they resolved the two biggest complaints for the Empyrean: mid-bass bloat and being a little bit too dark, especially considering that mid-bass bloat. They really did a great job in cleaning up the mid-bass and adding a little bit of sparkle in the top end that the first one was missing. And now not only does it feel detailed and rich and alive in the top end, but smooth, but without being too dark. Now, if we're checking out a graph for the treble response, you can see there are small peaks at 6.9 and about 15K, but this falls within the preference window. And personally, I think it's not going to be too much for that many people. Now, occasionally on harsher vocal tracks at 6 to 9K, that will come out a little bit, so it is a little bit harder to crank up. With some AC/DC, you're going to be fine to blast that, but maybe not cranking up Amy Winehouse too much. Now, when it comes to timbre, this falls within a very natural sound, and I actually like most of the timbre characteristics when it comes to the bass, mid-range, and lower treble, but some of the upper treble, it isn't quite as flexible as some other headphones. Headphones like the Diana TC, when it comes to like metallic shine or shimmer or those higher end kind of string instruments, they don't really sparkle and sound as saturated and colorful as they do on the Diana TC. Now, quite honestly, this really isn't a big deal, but I am kind of running out of things to complain about. So this is one of the things that I feel like a couple other headphones do a little bit better. Music really matters. A lot of these audiophile headphones, if you're playing Diana crawl, your typical audiophile stuff, they sound amazing. But as soon as you put on hardcore rap or rock or death country, whatever you're into, they kind of lose all their bite. And for me, a lot of times when the music gets a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more intense, that's where speakers start to pick up the slack of a lot of high-end headphones. They sound okay on headphones, but they don't sound great. But I think because of the Empyrean's tuning, it really stands out here as being very good for all genres of music. It really doesn't matter what you're listening to. It's able to push forward the power of a song, the rhythm of a song, and kind of, the soul of a song almost. Like if I'm listening to the saddest song that has ever existed, which is Dance with the Devil by Immortal Technique, I don't need to know how shitty that recording is. It's not great, but I do have to feel dread when listening to that song. A great headphone will show you the soul of a song. This headphone does that. It's detailed, but it doesn't lose the point of the music, which I love. Now, sound staging and imaging. Imaging is phenomenal. It's very good. The sound staging, though, is kind of just a blob like this. It goes very far out to the sides, but you don't get a ton of forward depth. This seems to be a constant style for MEZE's Elite lineup and Empyrean lineup, this kind of side staging. The side staging ability here is really good. it's excellent. In fact, in terms of like lateral width, this is one of the better headphones out there right now. It just doesn't quite Soundstage as deep and as forward as a few other really, really good headphones that Soundstage really well can right now. Again, this is one of those things where like this is a small area for potential improvement in the future, but the existing performance is nothing to be ashamed of at all. Now I want to do my own full video kind of breaking down this headphone versus a bunch of others. And that'll be separate because this is already going to be long enough as it is. But I do want to hop over to my discussion with Doug here and talk about what we'd prefer with this thing, if anything. What would you pick over this headphone? What beats it for you?
Maybe the Warwick Bravura. And that's just because it's a mix of objective and subjective. I know the Bravura is very neutral and I like a neutral sound. The bass on Bravura is delicious because it's like an E-stat that also does crazy deep sub bass. But this is also a lot more comfortable for me than the Bravura because of its weight.
So you'd even take this over like the HE1?
I think that if I had this and a Bravura, I would not need an HE1.
Yeah, I think I would take this over an HE1 too. I know that not everyone is going to love it, of course, but I could see this being like a pretty good reference point for all things over like $1,000 moving forward.
There's very few cases where over the price point of $1,000, this wouldn't be the go-to recommendation. And that's just because, again, there are kind of two fields, I feel like, more of people in this hobby that go after things. There's like the ones who want like maximum accuracy, and there's people who want just like really lively, fun, enjoyable sound. And I think that for a lot of people, it's going to be the latter. And I think that even a lot of people who are after a high accuracy sound, I think they're still going to enjoy this, even if it might not be their main go-to thing for neutrality.
This is for people who want to enjoy their headphones, not find problems with their headphones.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's also going to be people that, like you said, that do not like it. And
oh, for sure.
Hey, what do you know? That's okay. You don't have to like it.
There's small improvements that I would make with it. Like, you know, I would love for the sound staging to be as big as possible. I would love for the timbre of the high end to be a little bit more capable. If I was not a reviewer, I'd be totally happy with just kind of settling down with this one and just being done, you know?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If I wasn't a reviewer, I would probably do either this or a Warwick Bravura and just be done forever.
Doug, I appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing your thoughts with me. Behind the scenes, me and Doug are really close. And one of the things that we always kind of battle with each other about is our difference in sonic preference. We prefer a lot of different things, but occasionally our preferences really line up, and this is definitely one of those times. So I was happy to talk with him and chat about the MEZE EMPYREAN too. Okay, so I have some additional thoughts that don't really fit into any particular one category. I would love to see a cheaper budget version of this, maybe around the $1,500 mark. That would be fantastic. Putting this driver into something that was of like the 109 Pro style of build, with maybe slight alterations to the driver, but maintaining largely the same tuning would be fantastic. Now, I also want to draw attention to this cable. The web page for this product is not up and available right now. So I can't actually tell if this is the stock cable that comes with it, but this is their silver cable. The most comparable one that they sell separately is like $400, which is sheesh. But if this is the stock cable for this headphone, this is an incredible cable. This is one of the best cables I've seen come on a headphone ever. It's just amazing. It doesn't get bound up. It's incredibly well made. The cable here is just fantastic. Again, I don't have the webpage up, so I can't tell you exactly how efficient this thing is, but it's very efficient. Now, I've been fortunate enough to be able to listen to this on a very high-end tube amp like this one, which is WA23. But honestly, you don't really need it. I was very happy with this thing on a $50 Moondrop Dawn Pro dongle. It's just so good with not that much amplification. It's really impressive. Conclusion, MEZE, well done. That's it. Subscribe. Thanks a lot. Bye.